My Vision Statement by Catherine Castillo, Future Therapist for Children with Special Needs. Learners and Hidden Curriculums. I aim to teach all types of learners within my office to be able to learn coping strategies and social skills in a safe and supportive environment. While learning these skills explicitly, learners will also learn implicitly with hidden curriculum to interact positively with those in their lives and as they grow into adults. My learners will be able to communicate effectively, have meaningful relationships, and thrive in their everyday lives. The types of learners. In my workplace, I expect to find a wide variety of learners that are all coming from different places, experiences, and with different diagnoses. These types of learners in my future career are those diagnosed with autism, FAS, trauma survivors, emotional disturbances, and other behavior difficulties. I expect to find that some of my learners may have attended therapy before, some are court mandated, and some that have never been to a therapist. This diversity of clients with different needs will require a certain flexibility and a patience on my behalf. There will be many clients that will have parents that are desperate to help communicate with their child and help their child. While some learners may feel similar to their parents, misunderstood, other clients may want nothing to do with my sessions. These learners may be resistant to treatment. I will create an environment that those learners may freely express themselves and learn new ways to handle their emotions and how to handle situations. The two explicit things that will be mainly focused on in my sessions will be learning new coping strategies and age-appropriate social skills. This will be done through the creation of routines and explicit coping mechanisms in tough situations. According to Cowhey and Black Ants and Buddhists, routines need to be taught explicitly step by step. This will be my goal to introduce to each client and their families. My learning environment will consist of formal learning through workbooks and worksheets. Learners will also be able to learn from their peers in weekly group sessions. Lindsay Getz states that play is a form of free association for children, but it's also a way of understanding how the child develops a sense of self. Social skills groups will consist of learning through age-appropriate play, shared experiences, role-playing, and conversations. Learners will then take skills learned in the structured group environment and apply it to their own interactions with their family, peers, school, etc. According to Great Schools Partnerships in the Hidden Curriculum consists of unspoken and implicit academic, social, and cultural messages that are communicated to students while they are in school. Students will learn more than just social skills and new coping strategies. Learners will implicitly learn how to thrive in life and as a whole being. Students will learn through the environment of the group meetings and individual sessions with me, materials that we use, and my teaching style. Hidden curriculum through the environment. In the group environment, learners will learn how to express themselves effectively to peers, collaborate, build social awareness, think before they act, share, take turns, lose, win, etc. In the one-to-one environment, learners will learn how to take emotional reactions and channel that into something meaningful and positive. Hidden curriculum through materials we will use both learners themselves, peers and family members, and myself to help foster an environment for children to practice their newly learned skills. Learners will also be able to use props for role-playing, games, artwork, and conversation cards to practice these skills. Due to this method, learners will be able to practice with the structured guidance of a professional, myself. They will be able to make corrections and be praised for when they are doing things correctly, verbally and implicitly, through the approval of others that they want to continue in the activity with them. Learning environment and the concepts of space, place, and material culture. I aim to provide a learning environment that children can practice necessary skills to be successful by the using of concepts of space, place, and material culture. In doing this, my clients will be able to transfer what they learn in my office and generalize it in settings where they interact with others like school, at home, or the playground. Learning environment. In special places, special people. It notes that freedom and a natural environment were almost invariable factors, and that the opportunity to consider the environment one's own, to touch and explore without fear of transgression was essential. It is important that my environment to reflect this. Children need to feel the freedom to move around and to not be confined. That is how I can build a trusting rapport with them. If they feel that every time they come into my office it was boring or hard, it will be difficult to motivate them and their families to keep coming. The concept of space, place, and material culture. I interviewed a therapist for children with special needs, Jennifer Thomas. Jennifer has been a therapist for over 15 years. When speaking with her, she stated, "It is really important to have calming colors within the office and have as little clutter as possible. This creates a space that children and their parents feel comfortable in. These children and their parents have anxiety enough in their everyday lives. We do not want to recreate this in this space. It is important, too, for my environment to encompass the material culture of the classroom in some ways when running group sessions in my space. According to Johnston, classroom material culture ought to be viewed as a representation of the relative positioning of school community. This is a key piece of the transference of what is learned in my environment to the classroom, at home, or on the playground." The achievement gap and cultural bias. I aim to close the achievement gap between my clients that have special needs and those that are typical through the services and therapy that I am providing. I also aim to educate the public on diagnoses that my clients have in order to turn away negative cultural biases and create a more inclusive community. The achievement gap. When referencing the achievement gap, many people first think of low-income students and minority students. Most people do not think about the students that have special needs. As a therapist, I hope to close this gap by addressing the impact of attitude and beliefs about students with IEPs, getting underneath real levels of expectations for students. This can begin in my office, through group meetings and with proper education of family members and of those with special needs. In order to help close those achievement gap, it is important to note clients' characteristics include family background variables such as household income levels and parents' educational attainment, as well as demographic variables such as race and gender. These are important in educating clients and their families properly. Cultural bias. There's a stigma that society has put on those labeled with any diagnosis or special needs. People can tend to stereotype those that are considered different from the norm. Edelman states, "Every child deserves a level playing field and a fair chance to succeed." This statement is the base as to what I will gear my therapy and proper education of diagnosis to those that I can. Jennifer Thomas has taught me how we can educate parents to teach those in the community how to help this cultural bias against those with disabilities. This will help reinforce my vision statement. Culture as a disability and interpreting cultural conflict in learning environments. Through my work as a therapist and application, I aim to change the line of thinking of them to we. I hope to change terms of culture as a disability for my future special needs learners and clients. I also aim to change the cultural conflict in the learning environment of my own office and within the community that I work in. Culture as a disability. The phrase culture as a disability is particularly applicable to the population that I will be working with. This is not because of my client's special needs, but rather society's view on those with special needs. Society underestimates what the special needs population can do. In the essay Culture as a Disability by Wenger, we learn that the cultural construction of institutional occasions for the creation and display of various disabilities, deafness, learning disabilities, illiteracy, reveals not broken persons, but identifications neatly tuned to the workings of institutions serving political and economic ends through formal educational means. It is important to advocate on behalf of my future clients through proper education to parents, family members, and those in the community. In my office, it is also important for the teacher to ultimately hold the primary responsibility for the integration and coordination of this constitutionally mandated program. Through proper application, I can help remedy society's misconceptions that these children cannot be contributing members of society because they do not fit into the role and confinements that society has unfairly put on them. I plan to adopt more of an Eastern philosophy than Western. Spiegel stated, "For the most part of American culture, intellectual struggle in school children is seen as an indicator of weakness, while in Eastern cultures it is not only tolerated, it is often used to measure emotional strength. I hope to also change the rhetoric that this population is somewhat less or weak, that those with special needs cannot relate. It is important to be inclusive for all and create a them to a we." Interpreting cultural conflict. In order to interpret cultural conflict in learning environments, like my office, it is important to define what a culture is. According to Andrea Williams, a culture is a group of people which shapes a person's values and identities. Misconceptions and conflict arise when a person acts according to the values and norms of his or her culture. Another person holding a different worldview might interpret his or her behavior from an opposite standpoint. To combat this type of conflict, it is important to arm parents and children with proper information to educate those that interact with them about their own or child's disabilities. This can be done through parent workshops or done through group sessions with the children themselves. The beautiful thing about working with this population is no child is the same. This can be an incredible tool to teach children how to be more inclusive of others that may be different than them. Pop culture and core rituals. I aim to keep relevant on pop culture in order to build a better rapport with my future clients. This is especially important when working with children with special needs that may need my help to also incorporate into society in appropriate manners. I also aim to provide a structured environment that certain rituals can be incorporated while also teaching children how to let go of their own core rituals that impede their further integration into their immediate community. Pop culture. In the article, Biggie Give Me One More Chance, Incorporating Pop Culture in the English Language Arts Urban Classroom, Warren stated, our students' love for pop culture is a critical peek into what we can do to further engage our students in the content. Understanding and staying current on pop culture helps foster connection at the kids' level. As a therapist, the most important tool that I can have to build rapport for a child is for them to feel understood, that I am not on a higher level than them, that I can relate to what they are going through. Without rapport, you are worthless as a therapist. It is important to use things like social stories to help my clients connect with their feelings that they may have by looking at situations outside of themselves. These social stories can be done in many ways. Comic strips provide a relevant way to help clients connect with social situations that they may be struggling with. Fishman stated, comics represent a communications genre that is consumed by hundreds of millions of people of all ages and social backgrounds. This makes the social stories easily digestible because it is something that my clients would be familiar with despite the age that they are. It can be applicable from small children all the way to adults. Core rituals. The therapy office space provides a safe place that is unlike schools. Schools have educational projects, policies, plans, goals, organizational means of achieving them. This limits their ability to do certain things that I can do with my clients. My space can be what I make it. I also have the space to teach children what rituals society abides by and how they can better integrate into society despite their deficits or difficulties. Rituals can be defined as those occasions when ideas are made to dominate and wherein participants are integrated in an unquestioning relation to their ideas that are present. Some children need to be explicitly taught these rituals, and others need more time to develop a better sense for them. In my office, children can learn both. Rituals, whether viewed positively or negatively, are features of classroom discourse in institutions and are not obstacles to change per se. They can also learn where they are different and how to harness that into a strength. It is also important for me to teach the children coping skills that have their own rigid rituals that impede their further development to be successful adults. Culturally responsive teaching. I aim to provide my future clients a therapist that is culturally responsive through my teaching of new material, skills, and facilitation of relational interactions. I hope to do this through showing my understanding of my culturally diverse clients and their needs. Culturally responsive teaching. Culturally responsive teaching is defined as using the cultural characteristics, experiences, and perspectives of ethnically diverse students as conduits for teaching them more effectively. It is important to prepare myself for the diverse clients that I will have both culturally and with different diagnoses. I can do this by educating myself prior to new clients coming into my practice. I should educate myself on clients' ethnic groups, cultural values, traditions, communication, learning styles, contributions, and relational patterns. It is also important to include curriculum that is inclusive of all clients that I have. Slater stated, there is a considerable research evidence that well-designed and well-taught ethnic studies curricula have positive academic and social outcomes for students. This is something that I can incorporate in the curriculum as well as the hidden curriculum. By interweaving throughout my teachings, clients will be able to relate to one another from a human-centered approach rather than someone's skin color or background. Lastly, it is important that I am up to date on relevant information as well as collaborate with coworkers on providing the best information for parents. Villegas takes my point further by saying, ultimately,